The transport ship broke through the clouds of Kesef Prime, and Elena Vasquez pressed her face against the window. The planet below was covered in purple forests and silver oceans. It was beautiful, but she barely noticed. Her mind was too busy with worry. The message had come 3 days ago. The Galactic Council wanted to see Earth's ambassador immediately. No explanation, no details, just a cold demand to appear before them at the orbital station called Concordance. Elena had been a diplomat for 15 years. She had negotiated trade deals and settled disputes. She had smiled through insults and stayed calm during threats. But something about this summons felt different. It felt like a trap. The ship docked with a heavy clang. Elena straightened her uniform and checked her reflection. She looked tired, dark circles under her eyes, gray streaks in her black hair. She was only 42, but the stress of representing humanity to 47 alien species had aged her quickly. A Croatian guard met her at the airlock. He was tall, covered in black armor that looked like an insect's shell. His 4 arms held different weapons. His mandibles clicked as he spoke through his translator. "Ambassador Vasquez, follow me. The council is waiting." They walked through long corridors. The station was huge, built by species that had traveled the stars for thousands of years. Everything was smooth and perfect. It made Elena think of a museum, cold and lifeless. Other aliens passed them in the halls. Some ignored her. Others stared with eyes that glowed or blinked in strange patterns. A few made sounds that her translator couldn't understand. None of them looked friendly. The guard stopped at a massive door. It was at least 30 feet tall, made of some kind of crystal that showed reflections of different colors. "The council chamber," the Croatian said. "You will enter alone." Elena took a deep breath and walked through as the doors opened. The chamber was enormous. It rose up like a cathedral with seats arranged in circles that climbed toward the ceiling. Each seat held a different species. Some looked almost human. Others were so strange that Elena's brain hurt trying to understand their shape. At the center of the room was a small platform. That was where she was supposed to stand, alone, surrounded by hundreds of aliens, all looking down at her. Elena walked to the platform. Her footsteps echoed in the silent chamber. She felt every eye, every sensor, every consciousness in the room focused on her. She kept her face blank and her back straight. A deep sound filled the room, like crystals ringing together. High Chancellor Thexul was speaking. He was huge, 15 feet tall, made of living crystal that shifted colors as he moved. He had led the council for 300 years. "Ambassador Elena Vasquez of Earth," his voice boomed through the translator. "You stand before the Galactic Council to answer serious charges." Elena said nothing. She had learned that silence was sometimes the best response. Thexul continued. "Humanity has violated the preservation protocols. Your colony on Arcturus Assixix has damaged native ecosystems. You have terraformed too quickly without proper oversight. You have ignored our warnings and our wisdom." A Velusian choir member floated forward. They looked like a cloud of blue light. Their voice was like music. "Humanity expands too fast. You take too much. You do not listen to those who came before." More voices joined in. A reptilian species accused humans of being aggressive. A floating jellyfish creature claimed that human ships polluted space. An entity that looked like living smoke said that Earth refused to share technology properly. The accusations piled up. Some were real problems. Most were exaggerations. A few were complete lies. Elena listened to all of them, her face showing nothing. Then Thexul spoke again, and his words sent ice through Elena's veins. "But the greatest violation is this. Humanity refuses to surrender control of its military forces to council oversight. You maintain warships. You build weapons. You act as if you do not trust us." The chamber erupted with noise. Clicks, whistles, hums, and sounds that human ears were never meant to hear. The translator in Elena's ear struggled to keep up, but the message was clear. They were angry, they were united, and they wanted humanity to submit. Thexel raised one crystalline arm, and the chamber fell silent again. The council has prepared terms. You will hear them after a short recess. Consider carefully, Ambassador. The consequences of refusal will be severe. Earth will face complete isolation. No trade, no travel, no access to council space. Your colonies will be alone. Your people will be cut off from the galactic community. He paused, and his color shifted to a deep red. This is not a negotiation. This is mercy. We are offering you a chance to save your species from its own mistakes. The other delegates made sounds of agreement. The Croathians clicked their mandibles. The Velusian choir pulsed with satisfaction. Even the smaller species, the ones that had always been kind to humans, looked away uncomfortably. Elena stood on her platform, surrounded by aliens who had already decided her answer. They expected her to bow, to apologize, to beg for forgiveness, and accept whatever punishment they chose. She looked up at Thexul and gave a small nod. Not agreement, just acknowledgement that she had heard him. "I will consider the council's words," she said quietly. The doors opened. The recess had begun. But Elena knew the truth. This was not about Arcturus VI. This was not about protocols or ecosystems or military oversight. This was about fear. They were afraid of what humanity might become, and they wanted to break that potential before it could grow. Elena walked out of the chamber with her head high. She had 1 hour to decide the future of her species. Elena found a small observation room near the docking bay. Through the window, she could see Kasef Prime spinning slowly below. The purple forests looked peaceful from up here. She wished she felt peaceful too. She activated her neural implant with a thought. A small screen appeared in her vision, invisible to anyone else. She started searching through files that Earth's intelligence services had sent her over the past year. Files she had not paid enough attention to before. Now she looked at them with new eyes. The first file was about the Fenril domain. 200 years ago, they had been warriors, proud and strong. They explored new worlds and built an empire that stretched across 12 systems. Then they came before the council on charges of aggressive expansion. They accepted the council's terms. They agreed to limits on their military. They accepted oversight and advisors. Within 50 years, the Fenril domain was gone. Not destroyed, just absorbed. Now they served as soldiers for the Croathians. They followed orders from species that used to fear them. They had no ships of their own, no colonies that belonged only to them. Elena felt sick. She opened another file. The Singing Moons of Baltheus. They were explorers, peaceful and curious. They loved to discover new things. 300 years ago, they found a world that the council claimed was protected. The Singing Moons did not know about the rule. They landed anyway. The council called them before the tribunal. The Singing Moons apologized. They accepted responsibility. They agreed to stricter rules about where they could go and what they could explore. Now they never explored at all. They stayed in their home system. They studied old data. They sang songs about the days when they traveled freely. But they never launched an independent expedition. The council had taken their spirit and replaced it with fear. Elena opened file after file. Every story was the same. A species that was too independent, too successful, too different. The council brought charges. The species accepted terms. Then slowly, piece by piece, their freedom disappeared. She closed her eyes. The pattern was clear. This was not about justice. This was about control. The council had existed for over 2,000 years. It started as a way for different species to talk and trade without war. That was good. But over time, it changed. The founding species, the ones who had been in space the longest, became comfortable. They made rules that helped themselves. They created systems that kept them powerful. New species were welcomed, but only if they knew their place, only if they followed the rules, only if they never challenged the old powers. Humanity was different. Humans had only been in space for 80 years, but in that short time, they had built colonies on 17 worlds. They had created technology that surprised even ancient species. They refused to be afraid. They asked too many questions. They wanted to understand why rules existed instead of just following them. The council was afraid. Elena understood that now. They looked at humanity and saw something unpredictable, something that might change everything. So they created this tribunal. They made up charges that sounded reasonable. They gathered all the species together to watch. They wanted to break humanity publicly, to show every other species what happened when you did not submit. Elena opened a new file. This one was marked with the highest security level. It contained psychological profiles of every council member. Earth's xenopsychologists had spent decades studying alien behavior. They understood how different species thought, what they feared, what motivated them. The Croathians respected strength but worshipped order. They followed rules absolutely. Any hint of chaos frightened them. The Velusian choir valued harmony. They could not stand discord. They wanted everyone to agree, to blend together like voices in a song. Thexel and his crystal species believed in patience and permanence. They moved slowly. They planned for centuries. Change was uncomfortable for them. One by one, Elena studied the profiles. She saw the patterns. These were not evil beings. They were not monsters. They were just old and comfortable and afraid of anything new. Her implant chimed. 15 minutes until the recess ended. Elena stood and looked out the window again. She thought about Earth, about her daughter who was studying engineering in Tokyo, about her brother who farmed corn in Argentina, about billions of humans who were just living their lives, not knowing that everything might change today. If she accepted the council's terms, those humans would be safe. For now. There would be no war. No isolation. Life would continue. But slowly, quietly, humanity's future would be decided by others. Humans would learn to ask permission, to stay in their place, to never reach too high. In 100 years, maybe 200, humanity would be like the Fenrir or the Singing Moons, safe but small, protected but powerless. If she refused, the consequences would be immediate. Earth would be alone. The colonies would struggle. Some might fail. People would suffer. They would blame her. History might remember her as the woman who destroyed humanity's place in the galaxy. But humans would still be free to choose their own path. Elena thought about her history classes from childhood. She remembered stories of people who refused to submit, who said no when everyone expected yes. Some of them failed. Some of them died. But some of them changed the world. She thought about the American colonists who refused British rule, about the protesters who faced tanks in Tiananmen Square, about the workers who formed unions even when it was illegal, about the scientists who questioned ideas that everyone believed. Humanity did not exist because people played it safe. Humanity survived because sometimes someone was brave enough to refuse. Elena made her decision. She erased all the files from her implant and walked back toward the council chamber. Her hands were steady. Her heart was calm. She knew what she had to do. The Croatian guard was waiting by the door. He looked at her with his compound eyes. She could not read his expression. "Are you ready, Ambassador?" Elena nodded. "Yes, I am ready." The doors opened. The chamber was full again. Every seat occupied, every eye watching. The weight of their attention pressed down on her like gravity. Elena walked to the center platform. She stood straight and looked up at High Chancellor Thexel. The Council is prepared to extend mercy, Thexul said. We will now present our terms. High Chancellor Thexul's crystalline form glowed brighter as he spoke. His voice filled every corner of the massive chamber. These are the terms that the Council offers to humanity. Listen carefully. Elena stood motionless on her platform. Around her, hundreds of alien beings leaned forward. Some were recording this moment. Others were already celebrating. They thought they knew how this would end. First, Thexul continued, humanity will reduce its naval forces to a defensive fleet only. No more than 50 ships may exist outside the Sol system. All other vessels will be decommissioned under Council supervision. A murmur of approval ran through the chamber. The Croathians clicked their mandibles in satisfaction. Second, all human colonies beyond Sol system will accept Council administrators. These administrators will oversee your governments and ensure compliance with galactic law. They will have veto power over any decisions that affect other species. Elena's jaw tightened, but she kept her face blank. Third, Earth's government will accept permanent observers embedded in all major institutions, military, scientific, industrial, and governmental. These observers will report directly to the Council and ensure that humanity does not develop weapons or technology that might threaten galactic peace. The Velusian choir pulsed with colors that showed satisfaction. Their musical voice sang out. This is wisdom. This is harmony. The young species must learn from the old. Thexul raised one crystal arm. Fourth and finally, humanity will pay reparations for the damage caused on Arcturus 6. The amount will be determined by Council economists. It will likely take several generations to pay in full. He paused and looked directly at Elena. His eyes were like diamonds, cold and hard. In exchange for accepting these terms, the charges against humanity will be reduced. You will maintain limited voting rights in the Council. Your species will be protected by Council law. You will be safe. Another pause. Longer this time. Ambassador Vasquez, does humanity accept the Council's mercy? The chamber fell completely silent. Every being in that vast space waited for her answer. They expected gratitude, humility, relief that humanity was being allowed to survive. Elena stood in that silence for a long moment. She thought about everything she had learned during the recess. She thought about the Fenril warriors who now took orders from their conquerors. She thought about the singing moons who no longer sang. She thought about every species that had stood where she stood now and accepted terms that sounded reasonable. She thought about her daughter, her brother, every human being alive and every human being not yet born. Then Elena Vasquez spoke one word. Her voice was clear and firm. No. For 3 full seconds, nobody moved. The translator systems in the room checked themselves, certain they had made an error. The word was too simple, too short. It could not be what the human had actually said. But Elena stood there, and she did not take it back. The chamber exploded. Voices erupted from every direction. Clicks, roars, whistles, hums, and sounds that had no human equivalent. The translator in Elena's ear went crazy trying to keep up. "Impossible!" someone shouted. "They refuse mercy!" Another voice cried. "Foolish primitives! This is suicide!" Elena raised her hand. The gesture was small, but something about it cut through the chaos. Maybe it was the absolute confidence in the movement. Maybe it was the way she stood, unbending and unafraid. One by one, the voices began to quiet. When the chamber was silent again, Elena spoke. Her voice was not loud, but everyone heard every word. Humanity refuses your terms. We refuse your jurisdiction. We refuse your fear disguised as justice. Thexul's crystal body flashed red with anger. You do not understand what you are doing. Without the Council's protection, Earth will be isolated, alone, vulnerable. We understand perfectly, Elena said. and we choose to be free rather than protected. A Croathian delegate stood up, his armor clanking. This is madness. You are one small species. We are 47 civilizations. You cannot stand against us. Elena looked at him calmly. We are not standing against you. We are standing for ourselves. There is a difference. She took a breath and continued. The Council has presented charges against humanity. But I have questions about those charges. Arcturus VI had no native intelligent life. The ecosystems we altered were microbial. We followed every rule that was clearly written. The only rule we broke was unclear, written in a language humans had not yet learned and never properly communicated to us. She paused. That seems less like a violation and more like a trap. Angry sounds filled the chamber again, but Elena kept talking. The Council says we expand too quickly. But the Croatians expanded to 20 systems in their first century of space travel. We have 17 after 80 years. The Council says we build too many weapons, but we have fewer ships than the Fenrir had when they were called before this tribunal. The Council says we do not cooperate, but we have signed every treaty offered to us, joined every trade agreement, and helped 3 different species during natural disasters. She looked around the chamber, making eye contact with as many delegates as she could. So I asked the Council, what is our real crime? What have we actually done wrong? Silence. No one answered her. Elena smiled, but it was not a happy smile. I will tell you what we did wrong. We refused to be afraid. We asked questions. We did not automatically accept that the way things are is the way things must be. That is our crime, and we will not apologize for it. A small delegate near the back, a member of the Singing Moons, made a soft sound. It was not agreement, but it was not disagreement either. It was the sound of someone who understood. Thexul's voice boomed again. You speak of freedom, but you are alone. 47 species agree that humanity must be controlled. 47 voices say you are dangerous. Elena nodded slowly. 47 voices. That is impressive. But I wonder, High Chancellor, when was the last time the Council disagreed with you about anything important? When was the last time someone in this chamber said no to the founding species? When was the last time the rules were changed to help a newer species instead of the old ones? The silence that followed was different. It was uncomfortable. Some delegates shifted in their seats. Others would not meet her eyes. Humanity is young, Elena said quietly. We make mistakes. We are loud and messy and we move too fast. But we are not your enemy. We are just different. And that should not be a crime. She stood tall on her platform, surrounded by beings who could crush Earth with their combined power. But she did not bow. She did not bend. So here is humanity's answer to your mercy. We will follow the same laws that everyone else follows. We will trade fairly. We will respect sovereign space. We will work with any species that wants to work with us. But we will not surrender our freedom. We will not accept punishment for crimes we did not commit. And we will not bow to threats. Elena looked directly at Thexul. If the Council chooses isolation, then we will be isolated. We will survive. Humans are very good at surviving. But the Council should ask itself a question. What kind of organization punishes honesty and rewards submission? Is that really the galactic community you want to lead? The chamber was silent. The Council's voices had died, not because Elena had shouted them down, but because she had spoken a truth that they did not want to hear. Elena was not done. She had refused the Council's terms, but refusal alone would not change anything. She needed to do more. She needed to show them exactly what they were dealing with. I want to share something with the Council, she said. Her voice was steady, professional, like she was discussing a trade agreement instead of gambling with humanity's future. Earth's intelligence services have been very busy over the past few years. Thexuel's crystalline body shifted colors. What are you implying, Ambassador? I am not implying anything. I am stating facts. Elena activated her neural implant. Data began streaming from Earth's servers, light years away. Information appeared on the holographic displays around the chamber. The Council operates on principles of transparency and equality. At least, that is what you tell new species. But we have been watching, we have been listening, and we have learned some interesting things. The first document appeared in the air. It was a treaty between the Croathians and the Velusian Choir. This agreement was signed 8 years ago, Elena said. It guarantees that the Croathians will support Velusian candidates for all council subcommittees related to communications and information. In exchange, the Velusian Choir supports Croatian military expansion into the border territories near the Fenril domain. Angry clicks erupted from the Croatian delegation. The Velusian Choir's colors shifted to defensive patterns. "That is a private matter," one Croatian shouted. "Not relevant to this tribunal." "Really?" Elena asked. "Because this agreement violates at least 3 council regulations about conflict of interest and vote manipulation. But somehow, no one has ever been charged with breaking those rules." She brought up another document. Here is a report from the Council's own security division. It shows that the Croatians maintain weapons stockpiles in 17 locations that were supposed to be dismantled after the Treaty of Kelvin. The report was filed 12 years ago. No action was ever taken. More documents appeared. Each one showed something the Council wanted hidden. Secret deals, ignored violations, rules that were enforced against some species but not others. The Velusian Choir has communication nodes embedded in every major council facility, Elena continued. These nodes monitor all transmissions, all conversations, even private communications between diplomats and their home worlds. The choir claims these are for security purposes, but they have used this information to gain advantages in trade negotiations at least 43 times in the past decade. The Velusian Choir's colors flashed with panic and anger. "These are lies! Human propaganda!" "Are they?" Elena asked. "I can provide you with transmission logs, decryption keys, timestamps. Everything is documented. We have been very thorough." A small reptilian delegate stood up. His voice trembled. "If what you say is true, then the choir has been spying on all of us?" "Yes," Elena said simply. The chamber erupted again. This time, the anger was not directed at Elena. Species turned on each other. Accusations flew. The careful unity that had surrounded the tribunal was cracking. Thexuel's voice boomed out, trying to restore order. "Enough! The ambassador is trying to distract from her species' crimes." Elena looked at him. "My species' crimes? Let me share something else with the council." A new hologram appeared. This one showed financial records. "The charges against humanity relate to Arcturus VI. The council claims we damaged ecosystems and violated the preservation protocols. But these records show that the High Chancellor's own species has terraforming operations on 12 worlds, including 3 that had complex native life. Those operations have been running for centuries. The environmental damage is extensive, yet no charges have ever been filed." Thexuel's colors flashed between red and black. "Those operations were approved. They follow established procedures." "Procedures created by and for the founding species," Elena said. "Procedures that did not exist when your people were expanding. Rules that were written after you took what you wanted, designed to prevent anyone else from doing the same." She looked around the chamber. Many delegates were watching her now with different expressions. Some still looked angry, but others looked thoughtful. A few looked horrified. "Do you want to know what Earth's xenopsychologists have learned?" Elena asked. "They have studied every species in this chamber. They understand how you think, what you fear, what motivates you." She pointed at the Croatian delegation. The Croatians value order above all else. They need clear rules and strict hierarchy. Chaos terrifies them. That is why they react so strongly to humanity's unpredictability. We frighten them not because we are dangerous, but because we are unpredictable. The Croatians started to protest, but Elena kept going. The Volusian choir cannot tolerate discord. They experience disagreement as physical pain. That is why they work so hard to make everyone agree. It is not about control. It is about survival. They need harmony the way humans need oxygen. She turned toward Thexul. And the crystalline ones. Your species measures time in centuries. You plan for the long future. Change is difficult for you, not because you are stubborn, but because your entire biology moves slowly. Fast changes feel violent to you. Elena's voice softened. None of these traits are bad. They are just different. But they mean that this council, led by these species, will always resist change, will always fear new voices, will always try to slow down anything that moves too fast. She spread her hands. Humanity moves fast. We are chaotic. We disagree with each other constantly. We question everything. We make the Croatians nervous, cause discord for the Volusian choir, and force change on the crystalline ones. That is why you want to control us, not because we are wrong, but because we make you uncomfortable. A long silence followed. Elena could see some delegates considering her words. Others looked angry that she had exposed their psychology, but no one could deny what she had said. The Council's greatest weakness, Elena continued, is not military. It is not economic. It is that you have become comfortable. You have forgotten what it means to struggle, to adapt, to risk everything for freedom. She paused. Humanity has not forgotten. We cannot forget. It has only been 80 years since we left Earth. Our grandparents remember when we were stuck on one world. We remember what it took to reach the stars. And we will not give up that freedom. Not for safety, not for acceptance, not for anything. Elena looked at each delegation in turn. I am not asking you to like humanity. I am not asking you to trust us. I am just asking you to be honest about why you are here. This tribunal is not about justice. It is about fear. And if the Council makes decisions based on fear instead of principle, then it has already lost its way. The chamber was silent again, but this time it was not an angry silence. It was a thinking silence, a silence full of uncomfortable realizations. High Chancellor Thexul stood frozen, his crystal body dim. For the first time in 300 years of leadership, he did not know what to say. Elena had not just refused the Council's terms, she had held up a mirror and forced them to see themselves, and what they saw was not the wise, just organization they claimed to be. It was an oligarchy, built on fear and maintained by power. The Council's voices had died not because Elena destroyed them, but because her words revealed what they had tried so hard to hide. The silence in the Council chamber stretched on. It was heavy and uncomfortable. Elena stood on her platform, watching as delegates looked at each other, at their leaders, at anything except the truth she had forced into the light. Finally, High Chancellor Thexul found his voice. It was quieter than before, less certain. You have made serious accusations, Ambassador, accusations that undermine the very foundation of this council. Even if we were to overlook your refusal, you have damaged relationships that took centuries to build. I have told the truth, Elena replied. If the truth damages relationships, then those relationships were already broken. A delegate from the Fenril domain stood up. He was old, his warrior's body scarred from battles long past. When he spoke, his voice shook with emotion. I withdraw my people's support for this tribunal. Gasps echoed through the chamber. The Fenril had been among the loudest voices demanding humanity's submission. Now their delegate looked at Elena with something like respect. "The human speaks truth," he continued. "My people stood where she stands now. 200 years ago, we accepted the Council's mercy. We thought we were being wise. We thought we were choosing survival." He looked around at the other delegates. "We were wrong. We chose slavery disguised as safety. We have not made a free choice in 2 centuries. Everything we do requires approval, permission, oversight. We are warriors who no longer fight our own battles. We are a people who forgot what it means to be free." The Fenril delegate sat down slowly, as if the weight of those words had exhausted him. Another delegate stood. This one was from the Singing Moons. Her voice was soft but clear. "My people also withdraw support. We too accepted the Council's judgment long ago. We were explorers once. Now we only remember exploration. The human is correct. This tribunal is not about justice. It is about control." More delegates began to stand. Not many, but enough. Small species that had been silent for years found their voices. Client states that had always voted with the powerful began to question. The coalition against humanity was crumbling. Thexul tried to regain control. His crystal body flared bright with authority. "This is chaos. The Council cannot function if every judgment is questioned." "Then maybe the Council needs to change how it makes judgments," Elena said. She was not gloating. Her voice remained calm and professional. "I am not trying to destroy the Council. I am trying to save it from itself." She took a step forward. "The Galactic Council was created to prevent war, to allow different species to coexist peacefully. That is a noble goal. But somewhere along the way, the Council stopped being a place where equals met. It became a hierarchy. A system where the old control the new, where the powerful make rules for the weak." Elena looked directly at Thexul. "That system is doomed. Eventually, someone will refuse to accept it. Someone will say no. Today, that someone is humanity. But if not us, it would have been another species tomorrow or next century. The problem is not rebellious members. The problem is a system that requires submission." She paused, then continued. "Humanity is willing to submit to the same regulations as everyone else. But only if those regulations are fair. Only if they are applied equally. Only if there is real accountability." "What are you proposing?" Thexul asked. His voice was wary, but curious. "A restructuring," Elena said. "Term limits for leadership positions. No one, not even your species, should lead for 300 years. Power should rotate. Oversight committees that include new species, not just founding members. Transparent voting records so everyone can see who supports what. Independent investigations of violations, not investigations run by the accused." She spread her hands. "Make the Council actually be what it claims to be. A council of equals, not an empire." The chamber erupted again, but this time the voices were mixed. Some were angry, others were intrigued. The Velusian choir was pulsing with colors that showed confusion. The Croathians were clicking in agitated patterns, but some of the smaller species were making sounds of agreement. A voice cut through the noise. It was musical and strange, coming from a species Elena did not recognize. They looked like floating crystals, smaller and simpler than Thexul's kind. "The human offers something valuable," the voice said. "She offers to share Earth's research on our psychologies. This knowledge could prevent conflicts, help us understand each other. That is worth considering." Another voice joined in. "Transparency would benefit my people. We have suspected vote manipulation but had no proof. If records were open, we could verify that our interests are being represented fairly." The conversation shifted. It was no longer about punishing humanity. It was about fixing the Council itself. Not everyone supported the idea. The Croathians were strongly opposed. Several founding species argued that the current system had maintained peace for 2,000 years and should not be changed. but the doubt had been planted. The comfortable certainty that had ruled the council was gone. Thexul watched as his absolute authority crumbled. He was not a fool. He had led the council for centuries because he understood politics. He knew when he had lost. "The council will take no vote today," he announced. "This matter requires more consideration. The tribunal against humanity is suspended pending further discussion of Ambassador Vasquez's proposals." It was not an admission of defeat, but it was not a victory either. It was something more important. It was an acknowledgement that things could no longer continue as they had been. Elena nodded. "Humanity thanks the council for its consideration." The delegates began to file out. Some glared at Elena as they passed. Others nodded respectfully. A few came up to speak with her quietly, asking questions about Earth's proposals. As the chamber emptied, Thexul approached Elena. He moved slowly, his crystal body dim and tired-looking. "You have made powerful enemies today, Ambassador," he said quietly. Elena met his gaze. "We already had powerful enemies. Today we made them blink first." Thexul was silent for a long moment. Then he made a sound that might have been laughter. "You are either very brave or very foolish. Perhaps both." "Probably both," Elena admitted. "The council will not be the same after this," Thexul said. It was not clear if he thought that was good or bad. "Change is uncomfortable," Elena said, "but it is necessary, even for species that measure time in centuries." Thexul nodded slowly. "I have led the council for 300 years. I thought I understood everything, but I did not understand humanity. You are very strange, you know." "We know," Elena said with a small smile. "We think it's our best quality." The High Chancellor turned to leave, then paused. "Your proposal for term limits. If it passes, I will be required to step down." "Yes," Elena said. "I find that I am not as opposed to the idea as I should be," Thexul said thoughtfully. 300 years is a very long time to carry responsibility." He left without another word. Elena stood alone in the empty chamber. She pulled out her communicator and sent a message to Earth. Just 3 words. "We still stand." The response came quickly. Her daughter had sent a simple message back. "Proud of you, Mom." Elena smiled. She had gambled everything on a single word. No. She had refused to bow, refused to accept that humanity's future should be decided by fear. She had not won. Not exactly. The council had not accepted her proposals. They had not apologized or admitted wrongdoing, but they had blinked. They had hesitated. And in that hesitation, humanity had found space to breathe. Elena walked out of the Concordance station with her head high. She knew the fight was not over. There would be more negotiations, more threats, more attempts to control humanity's expansion. But the Council had learned something important today. They had learned that humanity would not be broken by threats or intimidated by numbers. They had learned that humans would rather stand alone in freedom than bow together in safety. Most importantly, they had learned that sometimes the most powerful word in any language was no. As her transport ship pulled away from the station, Elena looked back at the massive structure. It had stood for 2,000 years, a symbol of galactic unity. Now, because one human had refused to be afraid, it would have to change. The Council's voices had died in that instant of refusal. Not because humanity destroyed them, but because Elena had revealed a simple truth. Fear is only powerful when people submit to it, and humanity had long ago forgotten how to submit. Elena leaned back in her seat and closed her eyes. She was exhausted, but she was free. And so was every human being in the galaxy. That was worth any price.